Hello everyone and welcome back to the pharmacology lecture series. In the earlier lecture we had started with the chapter adrenergic drugs, which are also known as sympathomimetics. So we have covered the adrenergic transmission in the last lecture, in which we have covered the different types of catecholamines, their synthesis, storage, the release, then their uptake. That's very important in the adrenergic transmission, their reuptake processes, the metabolism, and the different types of adrenergic receptors, that is alpha and beta. We have seen that they are further subdivided into alpha 1 and alpha 2, and beta are subdivided into beta 1, beta 2, and latest addition is beta 3. So we have seen what are the different locations and what are the different types of actions which are mediated through these receptors. That's very important because you need to recall all that as we are going to cover the pharmacological actions in the today's lecture. Okay, so which are the actions which are mediated through alpha receptors, and to be more precise, alpha 1, alpha 2, and which are the actions mediated through the beta receptors, that is beta 1, beta 2, and beta 3. Okay, again the selectivity of different agonists also varies towards different subtypes of the receptors also. So accordingly the actions may also vary. Okay, so we shall start with the actual adrenergic drugs or the sympathomimetic drugs. So what are these adrenergic drugs? So these are the drugs with the actions which are similar to that of ADR, that is adrenaline. ADR is accepted short form for the adrenaline. Okay, so these are the drugs which will produce actions similar to that of ADR or of the sympathetic stimulation. Okay, that is either the actions which are produced by the ADR when it binds to its receptor, or the actions which are produced after the sympathetic stimulation. So similar type of effects are also produced by these adrenergic drugs. Now these adrenergic drugs or sympathomimetics, these are categorized in 3 different types depending upon how exactly the sympathomimetic action is executed. Okay, so accordingly these are of 3 types: direct sympathomimetics, indirect sympathomimetics, and mixed action sympathomimetics. So coming to the first type, that is the direct sympathomimetics. So as the name implies, direct sympathomimetics. So these are the drugs which will directly act as agonists on either the alpha or beta or both alpha as well as beta adrenoreceptors. So examples of such type of drugs which act as direct sympathomimetics, which act as agonists at the adrenergic receptors, include ADR itself, noradrenaline. Na is noradrenaline. We have seen the catecholamines in the last lecture. Then the isoprenaline. Okay, this is the accepted short form, ISO, for the isoprenaline. Then the phenylephrine, methoxamine, xylometazoline, salbutamol, and of course there are many more which act as agonists at these adrenergic receptors. So these are the direct sympathomimetics. Next type is the indirect sympathomimetics. Okay, so as the name implies, indirect means these drugs will directly not go and bind to the adrenergic receptors, but they act on the adrenergic neurons to release the noradrenaline. Okay, noradrenaline, it is a neurotransmitter which is stored in the vesicles in the adrenergic neurons, neuron terminals. It has vesicles in which this noradrenaline is stored. So how indirectly acting sympathomimetics will act? They themselves does not go and bind to the receptors, but they will cause the release of stored noradrenaline. And this noradrenaline which is released, this in turn will act on the adrenergic receptors. Okay, so that's why these are known as indirect sympathomimetics. They act through the Na itself. It does not go and bind to the receptor, but it causes the release of noradrenaline, which in turn will go and bind to the adrenergic receptor. So similar type of actions will be produced. Okay. So examples of indirect sympathomimetics include tyramine and amphetamines. Then the third type is the mixed action sympathomimetics. So as the name implies, mixed action means it will act by both the mechanisms, direct as well as indirect sympathomimetics. So that means it will either bind to the adrenergic receptor. So it will act as an agonist at the adrenergic receptor, or it can even act by causing the release of Na, which in turn will go and bind to the receptors and produce the similar action. Okay, so both the types of mechanisms are seen. It can act directly as agonist, or it can cause a release of Na, which in turn will go and bind to the receptors. So examples of drugs which are acting as mixed action sympathomimetics include ephedrine, dopamine and mephentermine. Okay, so this is how you can categorize the adrenergic drugs. First, this is not the actual classification, therapeutic classification, we will come to it a little later. Okay, but this is how, depending upon the mechanism by which it produces the sympathomimetic action, they can be categorized into direct, indirect and mixed action sympathomimetics. Okay. Now, before going into the actual pharmacological actions, let us compare the alpha and the beta action. So, we have seen the locations of the alpha receptors and the beta receptors. So, we have seen that mostly the locations are common, but the type of effects which are produced, okay, these may vary. Okay, they will totally produce opposite action at certain sites in the body. Say, take an example of the actions on the blood vessels. Alpha receptors, they result in constriction of the arterioles and veins, so rise in BP will be produced. Whereas beta action produces dilatation of arterioles and veins. Okay, so it produces the fall in BP. So in the bracket, the subtype of the receptors which are responsible for these actions are also mentioned. Then coming to the actions on the heart. Okay, usually alpha action, it's very little or non-significant action, but arrhythmia may be precipitated at high doses. Whereas beta, it produces cardiac stimulation, increase in the rate, heart rate, force of contraction, conduction, okay, that is the conduction of the impulse through the conducting system, that is also enhanced. So mainly it is the beta action. Okay. Then next is the action on the bronchi. If you can see that alpha receptors are absent in the respiratory tracts, whereas beta 2 receptors are present, so it results in bronchodilation. Okay, even in case of the eyes, muscles of iris, okay, these are contraction takes place, so mydriasis is produced, whereas here there is no effect on the iris. Okay, aqueous humor secretion is also decreased in case of alpha, enhanced in case of beta. So again there is a contrast type of actions which are produced. Then intestinal relaxation is produced by alpha, okay, whereas beta 2 also results in intestinal relaxation. Then next action is on the bladder. Bladder trigone is contracted, the muscles in the lower region, okay, that is because of the alpha 1 action. And detrusor results in the relaxation. Detrusor muscles are present in the upper regions, that is the beta 2 action. So it will ultimately result in the hindrance towards the micturition, voiding of urine, it becomes difficult. Okay. Then on the uterus, alpha results in contraction, beta action is relaxation. Splenic capsule, contraction takes place as a result of alpha action, whereas slight relaxation takes place as a result of beta 2 action. Okay. Then neuromuscular transmission is facilitated by alpha action, it increases the ACH release, whereas beta action, it prolongs the fast contracting muscles. Okay, it activation state, it is prolonged in the fast contracting muscles. Okay, and it is abbreviated in the slow contracting muscles, and ultimately tremors are produced, which is very important, the beta 2 action. Again, insulin release is inhibited by alpha 2 receptor, whereas it is augmented by the beta action, but this one is dominant. the inhibition of insulin release. This is a dominant action, okay, rather than this one. Then glucagon secretion is also augmented due to beta 2 action, that is glucagon release will take place. In case of liver, alpha action, glycogenolysis will take place, whereas beta receptors are mainly responsible for most of the metabolic changes, that is glycogenolysis, so hyperglycemia will be produced. In case of muscles again, glycogenolysis will take place, so hyperlactic acidemia will be produced. In fats, lipolysis is produced, so there will be increase in the blood free fatty acids, so calorigenesis will take place. Then next action is release of the renin. It takes place under the influence of beta 1 action, okay, whereas alpha action is absent on the release of renin. It is not under the control of alpha receptors. Then next action on the male sex organs, ejaculation takes place by the action through alpha 1 receptor, whereas beta does not have any role in ejaculation. Even salivary glands, potassium and water secretion takes place as a result of alpha 1 action, whereas ptyalin secretion is increased by the beta action. Okay, again alpha action on the release of hormones from the posterior pituitary gland is absent, whereas it is mainly under the beta control, that is beta 1 receptors will be responsible for ADH secretion from the posterior pituitary gland. One more difference is that nictitating membrane, which is generally present in the animals, contraction of this nictitating membrane will take place as a result of alpha action, whereas it is absent in case of beta. Okay, beta receptors do not control this nictitating membrane. Okay, so as we can clearly see over here that depending upon the type of receptor, okay, subtype of receptor, the actions are also different at specific sites in the body. Okay, so with this we will start with the pharmacological action. So here mainly the actions, we will focus more on these three: adrenaline, noradrenaline and isoprenaline. Now over here also, if you can see, the selectivity towards the different subtypes of the adrenergic receptors is different for these different sympathomimetic amines. ADR, if you can see, it has alpha 1, alpha 2, beta 1, beta 2 action, but it has a weak beta 3 action. Noradrenaline, alpha 1, alpha 2, beta 1, beta 3 actions are present, but it does not have any beta 2 action. Beta 2 action is absent. Beta 2 mainly are the receptors present in the bronchi and bronchioles, okay, which mediate the bronchodilation. Okay, so which is absent with the noradrenaline. Isoprenaline has beta action. It can stimulate beta 1, beta 2 and beta 3 receptors, but alpha action is absent. It does not have any alpha action. It cannot bind to the alpha receptors to show any type of actions. Okay, so with this we will start with the pharmacological actions. The first action is on the heart. Adrenaline, if you can, we will focus mainly on these three: adrenaline, noradrenaline and isoprenaline. So these are the actions mainly of the adrenaline as a prototype over here. So ADR, it increases the heart rate, that is tachycardia will be produced due to the diastolic depolarization of the SA node, which is the pacemaker. So because of this, since pacemaker, there is depolarization over here, so there will be more number of impulses which will be generated. So accordingly the heart rate will also increase. Heart rate is nothing but the number of impulses which are generated from the SA node. So number of times the SA node generates the impulses, that many number of times the heart will beat, right? So the heart rate depends upon the depolarization of the SA node, which is increased by ADR, as a result of which it will increase the heart rate. Also it activates the latent pacemakers in the AV node and the Purkinje fibers. Okay, now what are these latent pacemakers? Okay. Now usually AV node, Purkinje fibers, these are the part of the conducting system of the heart, right? The heart generates its impulse in the SA node. SA node is the pacemaker, actual pacemaker. But here ADR can activate the latent pacemakers in this AV. So impulse generation will start in these regions, AV node and Purkinje fibers. Actually, any impulse generation does not take place anywhere else in the heart. So this indicates that arrhythmias can be precipitated. Okay, so ectopic pacemakers, that is pacemakers at some wrong place, okay, are activated. So arrhythmias can be precipitated. The number of heart rate will increase. The amount of heart rate will increase. That is the number of times the heart beat. It will markedly increase. So also it will result in the marked increase in the BP also, okay, because of this. Okay. Then certain anesthetics, they can sensitize your heart towards the arrhythmogenic action of the ADR. Okay. That is ADR in presence of these anesthetics, say for example chloroform or halothane mainly. It sensitizes the heart towards the arrhythmogenic tendency of ADR. There are greater chances of ADR showing arrhythmia in presence of this halothane. Okay. Again, apart from the heart rate, the force of cardiac contraction is also increased. Okay. So both heart rate as well as force of contraction is increased. So because of this, as a result of increase in the heart rate and force of contraction, obviously when the force of contraction is increased, the amount of blood which is pumped by the heart, that will also be increased, right? So cardiac output, which is the amount of blood which is pumped by the heart per minute, that will also increase. Okay. But simultaneously, even the oxygen consumption by the heart is also markedly enhanced. The increase in the cardiac output is a good sign, but increase in the oxygen consumption by the heart, that is not acceptable. Okay, so that means it is just having a stimulant action on the heart. It's not what you can say the acceptable stimulant action on the heart, because it is increasing the oxygen consumption of the heart also. Even the conduction of the impulse through the AV node, a bundle of his arterial and ventricular fibers, is also increased. Okay, so in the conducting system, the conduction of that impulse is also increased. The refractory period of all the types of cardiac cells is also reduced. Refractory period, it is the period where no new action potential is generated. So unless and until the action potential, the potential drops back to resting potential, the new AP is not generated. Okay. So the refractory period is also reduced by the ADR. Okay. And beta-1 receptors are responsible for all these cardiac actions. Okay. Now, due to the increase in the blood pressure, reflex bradycardia can be produced. Now usually the action of ADR on the heart is to increase the heart rate and force of contraction. So because of this, the cardiac output increases, so obviously the BP will also rise. Okay, even it has vasoconstrictor action, so BP rises markedly. Okay, so because of this marked increase in BP, there is a reflex bradycardia. Okay, to bring it back to normal, bradycardia is produced. That is reduction in the heart rate. This occurs due to the stimulation of the vagus. Okay, usually this particular response is seen when noradrenaline is injected by IV route. The next action is on the blood vessels. Now again on the blood vessels we have seen, depending upon the receptor, the action varies. Alpha receptors are responsible for vasoconstriction and beta-2 receptors are responsible for vasodilatation. So it depends upon the different agents, the dose in which it is used, and the vascular bed where exactly the blood vessels are located. Constriction, this one, is mainly occurring in the cutaneous mucous membrane and the renal beds, that is renal blood. In these particular regions, the blood vessels are constricted. Okay, and this constriction, it is mediated through both alpha 1 as well as alpha 2 receptors. Whereas dilatation, vasodilatation, which is mediated through the beta 2 receptors, this mainly occurs in the skeletal muscles, liver, and the coronary arteries, okay, which are supplying the heart itself. Okay. Then next action is on the BP. Now here the action on the BP, it varies depending upon the amine, the dose in which it is given, and the rate of administration, the speed with which you are administering the drug. Okay. Now coming to the first one, that is noradrenaline. Noradrenaline, it produces rise in systolic, diastolic as well as mean BP. Okay, all are increased because they do not, this noradrenaline, as we have seen initially, it does not have any beta 2 action, right? Okay, vasodilatation is mainly the beta 2 action, as we have seen, correct? So noradrenaline, it does not have any vasodilatory action, so it only produces vasoconstriction. Peripheral resistance will increase, okay, due to the alpha action. It produces rise in systolic, diastolic as well as mean BP. Next amine is the isoprenaline. Isoprenaline produces rise in systolic BP but marked fall in the diastolic BP, and usually the mean BP will fall, okay, when isoprenaline is administered. Now coming to the action of adrenaline on the BP. Now adrenaline action on the BP varies depending upon how you are administering this particular drug. Okay. Now when this ADR is administered by slow IV infusion or by subcutaneous injection, it results in rise in systolic BP and fall in the diastolic BP. Okay. Now here mainly the peripheral resistance decreases because the vascular beta 2 receptors, these are more sensitive, okay, at this rate of injection, and mean BP, it generally rises. Okay. Whereas when you administer ADR by rapid IV injection, okay, slow IV injection, rise in systolic BP, fall in diastolic BP and rise in mean BP. Okay. But when this ADR is administered by rapid IV injection, it results in marked increase in both systolic as well as diastolic BP. Okay. Whereas after some time, within a few minutes, a secondary fall in mean BP follows. Okay. So initially when this rapid IV injection of ADR is given, this is tried in animals, not in human beings, marked increase in the systolic and diastolic BP will take place, and after few minutes the BP will come back to normal. It will result in fall in the mean BP. Now supposing before injecting this ADR, if you have administered an alpha blocker, what will happen? Okay. Now alpha blocker, what is the alpha action? Alpha results in the vasoconstriction, right? And beta 2 receptors are responsible for vasodilatation, correct? So ADR, it produces the stimulation of both alpha as well as beta receptors, right? Okay. So that's why there is these alterations in the BP, right? Initially there is marked rise in BP and later on there will be fall in BP. Okay. But when you have administered the alpha blocker, before administering the ADR, what will happen? Alpha blocker, obviously as the name implies, it will block all the alpha receptors. So alpha 1, alpha 2 receptors are blocked, and alpha action is vasoconstriction and beta 2 action is vasodilatation. So what will happen? After alpha blocker is administered, if you administer this ADR, what will happen? Rise in BP will not be seen because already the alpha receptors have been blocked. This initial rise in BP is seen because of the alpha action. So now you have already given an alpha blocker. So what will happen? Vasoconstrictor action of ADR is blocked. It will not show any increase in the BP. Yeah, but it will produce only fall in BP because of its action on the only the beta 2 receptor. That is, only vasodilatation will be produced. Vasoconstrictor action has been blocked by the alpha blockers, and this particular phenomenon is known as vasomotor reversal of Dale. Okay, this is the scientist who has studied this particular phenomenon. Administration of alpha blocker initially will result in only fall in BP when ADR is given. Okay, so this to do with the action on the BP. Next action is on the respiration. Adrenaline and isoprenaline, both of these are potent bronchodilators because they have beta 2 action. But what we have seen initially when we had started with the pharmacological actions, noradrenaline does not have any beta 2 action. It has no beta 2 action, and we have seen that in the bronchi it is the beta 2 receptors which are responsible for bronchodilation. Relaxation of the smooth muscles in the bronchi and bronchioles results in bronchodilation, which is shown only by ADR and isoprenaline but not by the noradrenaline. Okay, mainly this action is more marked, that is the bronchodilatory action is more marked if the bronchi are constricted. So these type of drugs will be very helpful in the conditions like respiratory conditions like asthma, okay, or COPD, wherein the bronchoconstriction is the mainstay of the pathophysiology. So for this particular purpose, even ADR is given by the aerosol. It decongests the bronchial mucosa by its alpha action. So additionally, it is helpful in the pathophysiology of the asthma and the COPD. Okay. Even the ADR, it can directly stimulate the respiratory center also, but this action is not prominent in clinically used doses. It is seen only in higher doses. Rapid IV injection, which is done in animals, it can result in transient apnea. Okay, that is cessation of the breathing may take place due to reflex inhibition of the respiratory center. Okay, rapid IV injection, it shows totally different action. Okay. Whereas toxic doses of ADR, it produces pulmonary edema. Now, why pulmonary edema is taking place is because of the accumulation of the blood in the pulmonary circulation. There is shifting of the blood from the systemic to the pulmonary circuit because it produces more vasodilatation in the pulmonary blood vessels. So there will be more pooling of blood in the pulmonary circuit or the pulmonary blood vessel. So it will result in pulmonary edema. Next action is on the eye. It produces mydriasis, that is increase in the pupil size, because the dilator pupillae, they have the alpha 1 receptors. They are supplied by the sympathetic system. So as a result of stimulation of sympathetic system, NA, noradrenaline, it results in contraction of this radial muscles, or these are also known as dilator pupillae. Okay, so as a result of contraction of these dilator pupillae, what will happen? Because they contract, they will pull on the muscles. So it will result in this, the ciliary the muscles or the muscles of the iris, they will contract the dilator pupillae. So as a result of this, it will result in the mydriasis. Okay, that is increase in the pupil size, and this action is mediated through the alpha 1 receptor. Okay, but this action is minimal after the topical application because ADR cannot cross this cornea. Okay, so it penetrates the cornea poorly. So after local application, it might not produce the mydriasis. Also, intraocular tension tends to fall. So this will be advantageous in wide angle glaucoma. Okay, again aqueous formation, this is also reduced, outflow is also facilitated. So all these are plus point towards the glaucoma. So it can be used in the treatment of glaucoma. Next action is on the GIT. In isolated preparations, okay, in vitro preparations of the gut, it will result in relaxation. Whereas in case of intact animals and men, peristalsis is reduced and sphincters are constricted, but this particular action is not clinically very much significant. Next action is on the bladder. As we have seen, beta receptor result in relaxation of the destructor, and the alpha receptors are responsible for contraction of the trigone. Okay. So as a result of this, the muscles which are located in the lower regions, they are contracted, and the muscles in the upper region of the bladder, these are relaxed. So what will happen? It will hinder the micturition. Okay, bladder contractions will be affected. As a result of this, the voiding of urine, it will be affected or hindered. Next action is on the uterus. Now both the types of action, relaxation and contraction, will take place. Now the action will depend upon the species, the hormonal and the gestational status of that particular species. Now in case of rats, both the non-pregnant as well as pregnant uterus are relaxed. In case of rabbits, both are contracted. Whereas in case of cat, it results in relaxation of the non-pregnant uterus and contraction of the pregnant uterus. Whereas in case of human beings, it results in the contraction of the non-pregnant uterus but relaxation of the pregnant uterus only at term. That is after the completion of the 9 months. It results in the relaxation of the smooth muscles in the uterus. Next action is on the splenic capsule. It results in contraction. The alpha action is responsible for contraction of the splenic capsule. So as a result of this, more and more RBCs are poured in the circulation. However, this particular action is not evident in man. The next action is on the skeletal muscles. Neuromuscular transmission, this is facilitated. As we have seen, because of the alpha action, the ACH release is augmented. It will cause or produce the release of ACH, okay, acetylcholine, which acts as a transmitter at this, say at the NMJ. It is the main neurotransmitter, right, which helps in contracting the skeletal muscle. It helps in converting the nerve action potential into the muscle action potential. It conveys the signal. Okay, so basically it is responsible for the contraction of these skeletal muscle fibers. Now actions again differ according to the type of fibers. Okay. Now in case of slow contracting red fibers, the active state is abbreviated and less tension is developed. Whereas apart from this, it will also result in repetitive firing of the muscle spindles. So as a result of this, it can produce tremors in the slow contracting fibers, which is mainly mediated through the beta 2 receptors. Whereas in case of rapidly contracting white fibers, it prolongs the activation state and it also increases the tension development. So action depends upon the type of muscles. Usually tremors may be produced in the skeletal muscles. The adrenergic action is responsible for the production of the tremors. Next action is on the CNS. Okay. Usually in clinical doses, ADR does not produce any marked CNS effects because of its poor penetration in the brain. It cannot cross the blood-brain barrier very effectively, but only restlessness, apprehension and tremors can be produced. Whereas activation of alpha 2 receptors in the brain stem, it results in decrease in the sympathetic outflow. So it will result in fall in BP and bradycardia due to the decrease in the sympathetic outflow. Next action is on the metabolism. ADR, it produces glycogenolysis, as we have seen. So because of glycogenolysis, glycogen, it is metabolized, broken down to release more and more glucose. Okay, so hyperglycemia will be precipitated and hyperlactic acidemia in case of glycogenolysis in the skeletal muscles. Okay, both these actions are mediated through the beta 2 receptors. Another action is lipolysis. As a result of this, it will result in increase in the plasma free fatty acids. Also, it is having calorogenic action also. Transient hyperkalemia also will be produced, that is increase in the potassium level, which is followed by hypokalemia, that is decrease in the potassium levels. This is due to the direct action on the liver, muscles and the adipose tissues. All these actions, metabolic changes. However, apart from this, indirect metabolic changes also may be produced. Okay, as we have seen that reduction in the insulin release, it is a predominant action, right? Alpha 2 action. Okay, it results in augmentation of the insulin release also, okay, due to the beta action, but that is insignificant action. This is the dominant action, which is mediated through the alpha 2 receptors. It reduces the insulin release, whereas beta 2 action causes the augmentation of the glucagon. And you are all aware that these hormones basically control the metabolic changes in the body, right? So insulin and glucagon, these are the hormones which are produced by the pancreas, which again in turn, these reduction in the insulin and augmentation in the glucagon will have another additional metabolic effects, okay, apart from all these which we have seen. Okay. So this finishes the pharmacological actions, and coming to the adverse effects and contraindications. Okay, so as all of these we have already covered earlier under the actions and all. So transient restlessness, palpitation, okay, that is due to the increase in the heart rate. You will feel the heartbeats if you put your hand on the chest. Okay, then anxiety will be precipitated, tremors, pallor, skin will become pale in color. These are usual actions which are seen after the subcutaneous or intramuscular injection of ADR. Apart from this, marked rise in BP, it leads to cerebral hemorrhage, that is hemorrhage, bleeding, internal bleeding in the brain may take place, ventricular tachycardia or fibrillation, arrhythmias may be precipitated, angina, myocardial infarction, all these may get precipitated. Also, ADR is contraindicated in elderly males, BHP patients, okay, because passage of urine will be hindered, as we have seen, due to the action on the bladder. Again, it is contraindicated in hypertensives also, because BP rises, hyperthyroid and angina pectoris patients, because these conditions will be worse. Again, ADR should not be given during the anesthesia with halothane, because there is more chances of precipitation of arrhythmias. This halothane sensitizes the heart towards the arrhythmogenic tendency of ADR. So that's why it is contraindicated. Also, ADR should not be administered to patients who are receiving the beta blockers. Okay, because what will happen? These beta blockers will block the beta receptors, but alpha blockers are available. So ADR will have more marked alpha action, and alpha action produces the vasoconstriction. So there will be marked rise in BP due to unopposed alpha action. Okay. Then coming to the classification. Now, as you can see, it is a therapeutic classification. That is depending upon the use of the drugs, these are classified. So you can see more than one classes will have the same drug, because the same drug will be repeated in more than one classes also, because one drug may have multiple uses. So first class is the pressor agents. So pressor agents are the ones which will increase the BP. Okay. Examples include noradrenaline, ephedrine, dopamine, phenylephrine, methoxamine and mephentermine. Next class is cardiac stimulants. So as the name implies, these will stimulate the heart. Adrenaline, dobutamine, isoprenaline are the examples. Third one is bronchodilators, which will have mainly the beta 2 action. It will result in bronchodilation. Examples of drugs include isoprenaline, salbutamol, it is also known as albuterol, tolbutalin, salmeterol, formoterol and danbuterol. Next class is the nasal decongestants. Okay, so as the name implies, it will result in nasal decongestion. Usually what happens when you suffer from common cold. Okay, so you are unable to breathe appropriately due to blocked nose, right? So these are the drugs which are usually present in the cough and cold formulas. It results in nasal decongestion. So it will help in relieving the congestion. Examples include phenylephrine, xylometazoline, oxymetazoline, nefazolin, pseudoephedrine and phenylpropanolamine. Fifth class is the CNS stimulant. So these are the type of adrenergic drugs which are having more of central action. It has a higher central to peripheral ratio. So these includes amphetamine, disamphetamine and methamphetamine. Commonly these drugs are referred to as amphetamines. Okay. Next class is anorectic drugs. These are the drugs which act mainly as anti-obesity drug to help in reducing the weight, okay, body weight. Examples include fenfluramine, sibutramine and dexfenfluramine. Next class is uterine relaxant and the vasodilator. So as the name implies, they will relax the uterus at term, okay, maybe to delay the threatened abortions. This can be used, or vasodilators as vasodilators. Examples include retodrin, salbutamol, isoxsuprine and terbutaline. So this is to do with the classification, the therapeutic classification of the adrenergic drug or sympathomimetics. So we will cover the few important characteristic properties of individual drugs. So to start with the first one, that is dopamine, DA, which we have seen that it is also a catecholamine. Okay, there are three catecholamines: adrenaline, noradrenaline and dopamine, right? So dopamine, it is basically acting on the dopamine receptors, obviously. Okay, in the dopaminergic system, D1 and D2 receptors it can stimulate. Apart from this, it can also act as agonist at alpha and beta 1 receptors. Okay. Usually it mainly acts on these D1 receptors, basically in the renal and mesenteric blood vessels. Okay, these are more sensitive. So as a result of this, it raises the intracellular CAMP. So this will result in increase in the GFR and sodium excretion. Glomerular filtration rate will be increased and sodium excretion will be promoted as a result of its action on the renal blood vessels. Okay. Then moderately high doses also results in positive inotropic effect. Okay. This is mediated mainly through the beta 1 and the D1 receptor, dopaminergic receptor, and through the release of the NE. Positive inotropic effect means it produces increase in the force of contraction. Inotropic effect is the force of contraction, change in the force of contraction. So positive inotropic effect is the increase in the force of contraction, whereas chronotropic effect, it is very little. Chronotropic effect is change in the heart rate. It does not have any significant effect on the heart rate, but it increases the force of contraction. Again, vasoconstriction also occurs when large doses are infused. This is mainly because of the alpha 1 action. Okay, so it can produce the rise in cardiac output and systolic BP. Okay, why cardiac output is increasing? Because it has positive inotropic effect. Force of contraction is increased, and vasoconstrictor action is responsible for rise in the systolic BP. Okay. Next action on the CNS, as such it does not penetrate the blood-brain barrier, so it does not produce any CNS effect. For the same reason, dopamine, which is actually the mainstay of the treatment of Parkinson's disease, but dopamine directly cannot be used. In Parkinson's disease, the dopaminergic system is hypoactive. There is decrease in the dopamine levels. Okay, but you cannot administer dopamine to the patients directly because dopamine cannot penetrate the blood-brain barrier. So it does not produce any CNS effect. So for that matter, it has to be given in the form of a prodrug, that is levodopa is administered rather than the dopamine. So levodopa crosses the blood-brain barrier and it produces the actions in the CNS. So in the CNS, it gets activated in the dopamine and it is responsible for the CNS effects. Okay. Usually this dopamine, its use is restricted to the patients of cardiogenic or septic shock, those patients who are suffering from cardiogenic or septic shock because of its inotropic action in these particular patients, okay, or increase in the BP. Even in case of severe congestive heart failure, wherein there is congestion of the blood in the heart does not pump the blood appropriately in this particular condition. So it is helpful in in the treatment of CHF also. Usually it is administered in the form of IV infusion. Okay. Next drug is dobutamine. Actually this is a derivative of dopamine, but it lacks action at dopaminergic receptor. It does not stimulate the D1 or D2 receptor, but it can act and stimulate the alpha and beta adrenergic receptor. So the only prominent action is increase in the force of cardiac contraction, as a result of which cardiac output is also increased. Okay. It does not have any significant action on the heart rate or the peripheral resistance or BP. Only action is to increase the force of contraction. So usually this particular drug is used as an inotropic agent, okay, because it increases the force of contraction. In the pump failure, if there is pump failure accompanying myocardial infarction, or because of cardiac surgery, okay, or for short-term management of severe congestive heart failure. Okay. Next drug is ephedrine. Ephedrine, it is a naturally obtained alkaloid from Ephedra vulgaris. This is the source of ephedrine. Now this particular drug acts mainly indirectly, okay, but it has some direct action. So it's a mixed action sympathomimetic actually. Okay, it can both act on the alpha and beta receptors as an agonist, plus it can result in release in the noradrenaline also. Okay, so it produces tachyphylaxis, that is a release of noradrenaline is produced by this particular drug. So both it is a directly as well as indirectly acting sympathomimetics. Now one more peculiarity with this drug is that it is resistant to MAO. So for that matter it is effective orally. It does not get degraded by the enzyme MAO, which is involved in the metabolism. Okay, it is resistant. So it can be given by oral route. Potency, if you can consider, as compared to ADR, it is 100 times less potent than ADR. So it requires 100 times more dose as compared to the ADR to produce the same action. But it is longer acting, that is T half-life it is longer than ADR, it is 4 to 6 hours. Again, this particular drug ephedrine, it can cross the blood-brain barrier, so it can produce CNS stimulation. Okay, then other uses of this particular drug, it is used generally in mild chronic bronchial asthma and for hypotension, which is precipitated during spinal anesthesia. Okay, because it can increase the blood pressure. Okay, so it can be used in hypotensive states, like the one which is associated with spinal anesthesia, or postural hypotension, which is associated with the posture of the person. Usually in the standing position the hypotension may be precipitated, that is BP may fall. Okay, so these are the clinical uses of ephedrine for which it may be used. We'll stop here. This is the reference. Thank you.